Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. It's Wednesday. You made it halfway through the week. Yes, look on the bright side. This is the show where I recap live trials, so you have something to watch while you are crafting. Today, I'm going to talk about the closing arguments in the Maya Kowalski versus John Hopkins civil trial. Now, I'm looking, they are deliberating. They have been, the jury is out 7 hours and 47 minutes. Now, I know right now it is almost noon Eastern time, and the judge did say that they were going to have to uh, end early today, that he couldn't let them deliberate all day. So I don't know what early means. I don't know what time that means, but it'll go into tomorrow, I suspect. Yep. Anyway, let's talk about their closing arguments. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Scrolling again. Got my notes ready. I watched this thing till 10 o'clock last night. Like my ears were bleeding at the end. There was 4 hours of closing arguments. Each side got 2 hours. The plaintiffs divided their side, their half, or their 2 hours by, I think, an hour and a half for the first presentation. Then their rebuttal argument, they reserved the remainder of the time. So the judge started this out by thanking all of the court staff, and he went through everybody. Apparently, the courthouse that they're in is a very new courthouse, and uh, this was the first kind of trial of its kind in Sarasota. Probably, he said, the largest trial in the history of Sarasota County. And he wanted to thank the team. He did mention that it was a new building. He talked to the security and the clerk and the everybody. He forgot to thank the cleaning crew, but that's okay. Anyway, then Greg Anderson for the plaintiff got up and began his closings by calling the Kowalski family the great American family. They were very hardworking, very devout in their religion, and patriots. Ooh. But John Hopkins just blew up this family. He said Beata Kowalski was the quarterback of this family and was a force of nature. And you know what happens to a team when they lose their quarterback? Well, the team just falls apart. There's usually a backup quarterback. I know I should go there. Okay. Then he talked about the culture of the hospital. Um, then he proceeded to go through the defenses that the hospital had set up. He said, they said, well, when Maya Kowalski left the hospital, when she was discharged, she weighed more than she did when she came in. She had gained weight. She was doing great. And well, if you look at the weight, it was pretty much the same. We got her off all her medications. She was on so many medications when she came in. Well, if you look, when she's discharged, she's on like 14 medications. I mean, there were benign stuff, vitamins, things like that. But, and then he talked about the ketamine dose, that they took her off all of her ketamine, and she was doing fine. And he talked about how if she was doing fine, it was because she did it for herself. She was a determined little girl. Everything she did despite the efforts of John Hopkins Children's Hospital. Then he talked about how Beata must have pissed somebody off. And I think I said this many, many episodes ago, that that's probably what happened, because she had been at this hospital many times before, even with the CRPS diagnosis, but this had never happened the way it went down this time. And he felt like somehow, Beata, here comes this nurse, this registered infusion nurse. She's coming in and she's telling them what to do, and they weren't having it. And then he talked about how there's a lot of people watching this trial that have CRPS. And of course, because he was trying to appeal to the jury to, send a message, that all these people with CRPS are depending on you to do the right thing and whatever. So, of course, the defense objected, and that objection was sustained. You can't do that. So he just kept on with his argument. He talked about Sally Smith running the show, and that she was an apparent agent of John Hopkins. Now, what is an apparent agent? That's someone who works for somebody else, but they come in and you think, oh, they must be an employee of the hospital. Here's a really good example. When you go to the emergency room, who do you think the emergency room doctor works for? Do you think that emergency room doctor works for the hospital? I got news for you. No, none of them do. Hospitals do not employ emergency room physicians. They are employed by a different company, and they have a contractual duty to take care of the emergency patients, but they aren't employees of the hospital. If you look at the people in the cafeteria handing out the food, they're not employees of the hospital. If you look at the people that are sweeping the floor, you think, oh, they're working for the hospital, right? No, they're not working for the hospital. They're part of a different company. Now, the company might own all these other companies. It's all set up to make them less liable. So if something happens with the person that's sweeping the floors, then you have to go after their company, not the hospital that has millions upon millions of dollars in insurance. Millions. What else? Oh, the radiologist, the person that reads your x-ray. They don't work for the hospital. Mm-mm. So I'm going to say yes on the apparent agent argument of Sally Smith. She worked for the Child Protective Team, which is part of the Department of Health. It's a government agency. But she came waltzing in, whether or not she was wearing her lab coat, and she made it appear like she was part of this hospital. That's what you would think. That's what I would think. No. Who works for the hospital? Usually just the nurses, who else? Just the staff. Yeah, the person that's answering the phones, even the security guards now. Most of them do not work for the hospital. They work for a separate company. Most security is outsourced. All these things are outsourced to other companies when you go to a hospital. Keep that in mind. Anyway, they are apparent agents of the hospital. So then he talked about he went through all the different allegations that are pending here where they could award money, the jury. First one was a false imprisonment. He said there was two instances of false imprisonment. The first one being that when they wanted to leave, they were told, no, you cannot leave. If you leave, we're going to call security or the police. And then the second instance of the false imprisonment is when she was in this EEG room for 48 hours being monitored by a camera. Both false imprisonment. Okay. Suicide. He talked about suicide. And he said, yeah, it was caused by them. John Hopkins caused Beata Kowalski to commit suicide. Beata knew that she had to be out of the picture to save her daughter, to save her daughter's life. She had had experiences where friends who had lost loved ones with CRPS, and she was afraid that if she didn't get out of the picture, her daughter was going to lose her life or end up in foster care. So she took herself out of the picture. Then he talked about the battery by Kathy Beatty. He talked about the fraudulent billing. They were billing for CRPS, but they weren't treating her for CRPS. And then he asked the jury, because now they're going to talk about money. He says, I'm gonna let my associate come up. He's going to talk about money. And he said, remember, this is not a reward. This is an award. This is an award. I don't know what that means, but okay. Then he said, now his associate gets up to talk, and he says, well, he's left me 10 minutes to talk about the money. And it's very complicated. The whole money thing is that alone could keep the jury deliberating for days, because I had to pause it, think about what he was saying. And I've done this. I've never been a plaintiff lawyer. I was always the defense. And I kind of wondered how they did this formula, but I thought, geez, that's complicated. There are literally companies that will do this, experts that will, and that's what they did in this case. They put on experts to help them figure out the award. So he talked about there's human damages, and then there's punitive damages. And how do you figure out the human damages? Human damages are loss of enjoyment of life, loss of companionship, loss of future earnings, past and present. So, and then the jury has to award an amount of money for each charge: 2 counts of battery, 3 counts of false imprisonment. I don't know what the third one was. I talked about 2 of them. The account for intentional infliction of emotional distress, and then the medical malpractice counts and the wrongful death counts. Good Lord. Yeah. Like I said, they're going to be out in a couple of days to figure out. And I'm just going to talk about it briefly, because good Lord, it's very, very complicated. So economic damages, he said, loss of earning capacity for Maya. They had valued that at $5 million. Lots of future medical expenses that Maya would have is $10 million. So a total of $15 million just for that. Then there's the survivor claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress to Beata. In other words, they caused Beata so much distress that she killed herself. So if there's money awarded under that category, that money will go to the estate of Beata Kowalski, and then be distributed through the estate which goes to Jack and Kyle and Maya. Then there's Jack's wrongful death damages, which are loss of support and services, which is mom stuff. They take daughter to the ballet and to ice skating and cooking dinner and, all that stuff they don't have anymore. Lots of his companionship. Now, we know what that means. He doesn't have anybody to turn to at 4 a.m. when you wake up and you've got stuff on your mind, or you have, hanky panky. There's loss of it. So they valued that at a total of 801. All right, for the support and services, $801,000. And then for the companionship, past and future, $13,000. 13 million? 13, I don't know. I wrote down thousands, but I could have been wrong. My head was spinning. Jack's wrongful death, total, okay, 26 million. Okay, so 26 million for all that stuff I just talked about. And then they would have to do similar calculations for Kyle's wrongful death damages. Loss of his mom's support and services, who does he have to go to talk to about the birds and the bees, and who's going to take him to his practices, and who's going to help him with his homework. And they valued all of that. He suggested a value of 36 million. So a total of everything that this guy talked about in 10 minutes, $238 million. But this is just a suggestion, and this is valuing everything at $100 an hour. $100 an hour. Who makes $100 an hour? for taking their kid to ballet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If I was a juror, I'd probably cut that $100 down to maybe even 50. I think 50 is okay. We'll go with 50. She was a registered nurse. And this is not even including future earnings. Well, it does include future earnings and everything, but oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Then I love this guy. I don't even remember his name. He's the associate that's trying the case with Greg Anderson. He said, I'm a dad. I have small children at home, and we were watching this movie Onward. It's an animated film, Pixar film, and it's these kids that are trying. They've lost their father, and they're trying all these different things to bring their father back, magic and spells, and in the end, they bring him back. And he says, we can't bring back Beata. And he had tears in his eyes. And then here's pictures of Kyle at this moment and Maya at this moment, and they're both crying. Everybody's like, I even had like a tear. It was very emotional. So now you're thinking, oh, how is the defense going to answer to all this? This defense attorney did a brilliant job because I was on the fence. You know how I was talking yesterday. I could not believe all the things that they were cited for and what was going on at this hospital. Nobody was talking, but this defense attorney was he just glossed over all that and went right to the heart of the matter. That he talked about the treatment of Maya Kowalski. And he says, John Hopkins, he says, I'm very proud to represent them. They were practicing safe and evidence based medicine. Medicine should always be evidence based. Is there enough evidence out there to support what you're doing? And he asked the jury, this is a very sympathetic case. We all feel for, the little kids that were looking to bring their father back. But don't base your verdict on sympathy. Base it on the law and the evidence. And he says this case is all about a history of unnecessary meds given at dangerous doses. It's a lot of behavior filled with exaggerations. Then he talked about Maya's history before she gets to Johns Hopkins Hospital and how there was all Lurie Hospital in Chicago, Tampa General in South Florida, and several of her providers all mentioned conversion disorder. They all mentioned it. It didn't just come up all of a sudden in the emergency room at Johns Hopkins. This had been mentioned by many doctors before that they felt like this was some sort of conversion disorder. Not that Maya wasn't feeling pain, but that it was due to this conversion disorder. And then he made a case for the fact that the ketamine wasn't working. She had all these ketamine. The reason she got sent to the Mexico for the ketamine coma is because when she went to the guy that was giving her, the doctor that was giving her ketamine in Florida, it wasn't working. So he said, go try this ketamine coma. So they go try this ketamine coma. And by January of the following year, she's back where she was before. And they're still trying to get her pain relief. Now he talks about how they were free to leave. There was nobody holding them there. They were told, we would like you to stay. Now, do I believe that? No. There's no part of me that believes that. I can almost guarantee you that they said that if you take your child, we'll call security, we'll call the police. I can almost guarantee that was probably said. Okay. Then he played a tape of Jack Kowalski speaking to. I don't know if it was an interview or it was a deposition or something, but he said, this was with respect to Maya's exaggerated behaviors. He said, she'll be fine at home, until mom gets home. And then when mom gets home, all of a sudden she's in a lot of pain. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I did listen to the rest of this, and because I thought it was so good. It really was good. But I kind of zoned out. I was diamond painting. I was listening, I swear, but I stopped taking notes. He kind of lulled me, but he did a bang up job. He really, really did. He really did. So, who wins? I don't know. I don't know. It could go either way. One of the things he did say in his closing that I remember uh, through my diamond painting is that if you're inclined to award these people money for their damages. First of all, if you believe that she has CRPS, she had it before she got to the hospital. Why are we paying for all of her future medical care? Why? She already had the disease. It's not going away. She will always have it. And he says 238 million. He says give 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 238 million. No, I agree. I agree. But no matter what that money is, it'll probably be something that's negotiated later on down to something reasonable. And what will happen is more than likely it'll be set up in the form of annuities for the kids. I mean, Maya's grown now, but money that they can get on a yearly or monthly basis for the rest of their lives. It'll probably be arranged in that fashion. You get more for your money if you take your award and do it that way. Anyway, all right. That's like winning the lottery, and then you say, do you want the lump sum or do you want it in monthly payments? I don't trust the lottery, so that's why I would take the lump sum. But here, so I wanted to show you the diamond painting, what I was doing during all these arguments. Working on Into the Night, or Lead Me Tonight, a Yumi art painting. I'm doing a paint along with Coloring and Craft with Joanna. So I was working on the stem of the violin and confetti. Yeah. So this is not part of the painting. These are release papers, but here's what I was working on last night. Just this part here. It's very intricate, lots of different colors, and this is going to be a stunning painting when it's done. But I had this grandiose idea. I'm going to open up the whole violin. I'm just going to do the whole violin last night. Now, I got the stem done. All right, guys, that's the show for today. We are on verdict watch, 8 hours and 10 minutes now that they have been deliberating. I'll be doing a show tonight, a live stream. I'm going to get my watercolors out. I went this morning for my morning walk with the dog, and there's these beautiful fall leaves everywhere. And so I picked up some, and it's like all of a sudden, through the world of watercolor, I'm seeing colors everywhere. Before I would just see these old brown leaves on the ground. Well, I picked up these leaves and I'm seeing yellows and greens and reds and browns. And so I'm going to try to watercolor paint some of those leaves. I brought some home. So tune in tonight. That's at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 Eastern. And I hope to see you then. If not, I'll see you when we get a verdict or tomorrow in another episode of Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.